I want you to imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering that the tiny copper coin in your hand could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. It sounds impossible, but for some collectors, that dream became reality with one very special coin, the 1970D Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 1970D Lincoln cent looks like any ordinary penny. Millions of Americans carried these coins in their pockets, dropped them into vending machines, and tossed them into piggy banks without a second thought. Yet hidden among the billions of Lincoln cents produced over the years, a few 1970D pennies have become some of the most talked about coins in the collecting world. So what makes this seemingly common coin so special? Why are collectors constantly searching through old coin jars hoping to find one? And could one still be sitting unnoticed in circulation today? Let's uncover the fascinating story of the 1970D Lincoln Penny. The year was 1970. America was entering a new decade filled with change. The Apollo moon missions were making history, technology was advancing rapidly, and everyday life looked very different from what we know today. During that year, the United States Mint continued producing Lincoln cents to meet the nation's growing demand for small change. One of the major facilities responsible for making pennies was the Denver Mint, located in Colorado. Coins struck there carried the familiar D Mint mark beneath the date. The Lincoln cent itself had already been around for more than 60 years. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1970, Americans were completely familiar with Lincoln's profile on the front of the coin. Few people imagined that 1 year's production would eventually create a coin surrounded by mystery, excitement, and surprising value. The 1970D Lincoln Penny was struck using an alloy made primarily of copper. Each coin weighed about 3.11 grams and featured the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the front. The reverse displayed the famous wheat-free memorial design introduced in 1959. This design showed the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with tiny details that many people never noticed. In fact, if you look carefully, Lincoln's statue can actually be seen inside the memorial, making him appear on both sides of the coin. That hidden detail remains one of the most fascinating features of Lincoln Memorial cents. Most 1970D pennies are common. Millions were produced, and ordinary circulated examples are usually worth only a small amount above face value. But that's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Among the millions of coins struck in Denver, a small number displayed unusual characteristics that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into highly desirable collector pieces. The most famous variety associated with the 1970D penny involves what collectors call a repunched mint mark. Back in those days, mint marks were punched into coin dies by hand before the coins were struck. Sometimes the punch was not placed correctly the first time. When that happened, workers would punch it again, creating overlapping impressions. On certain 1970D pennies, the mint mark shows evidence of being punched more than once. Under magnification, collectors can see extra details around the letter D, creating a distinct appearance. These varieties became extremely popular because they offer something collectors love: a visible minting mistake that tells a story about how the coin was made. The idea that a tiny error inside a government mint could survive on a coin for decades fascinates collectors around the world. But repunched mint marks are only part of the excitement. Condition plays an enormous role in determining value. Think about how pennies are treated. They bounce around in pockets, scrape against keys, roll across counters, and spend years in circulation. Most become worn and damaged. Finding a 1970D penny in pristine condition is surprisingly difficult. Collectors search for examples with bright original luster, sharp details, and surfaces free from major marks or scratches. These high-grade coins can command dramatically higher prices than ordinary examples. A coin worth just a few cents in average condition can suddenly become worth hundreds or thousands if preserved perfectly. That difference is one of the reasons coin collecting feels like a treasure hunt. Now let's talk about values, because this is where things get really interesting. Most circulated 1970D Lincoln cents remain affordable. They are common enough that collectors can easily add one to their collection without spending much money. However, exceptional examples tell a very different story. High-grade certified coins have sold for hundreds and even thousands of dollars depending on their quality and rarity. Some of the finest known examples have achieved remarkable auction prices because serious collectors compete fiercely for top-ranked specimens. When a coin receives an elite grade from a professional grading service, its value can increase dramatically. That's because collectors know exactly what they're buying, and top-quality coins become increasingly difficult to find as grades rise. Imagine two pennies struck on the same day in 1970. One enters circulation immediately and spends decades being used in everyday transactions. The other somehow remains untouched, stored safely for years. Today, the first coin might be worth only a small premium, while the second could be worth hundreds or even thousands. That's the incredible power of condition in the coin market. Of course, whenever valuable coins become popular, another issue appears: counterfeits and altered coins. So how can you identify a genuine 1970 Lincoln penny? The first step is checking the date and mint mark carefully. The coin should clearly display the year 1970 with a D mint mark beneath the date. Next, examine the overall appearance. Authentic coins should have consistent details and natural wear patterns if circulated. Collectors often use magnification to inspect the mint mark and other features. Genuine varieties usually show specific characteristics that experienced collectors recognize immediately. Weight can also provide important clues. Authentic 1970 pennies should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. Significant differences may indicate damage, alteration, or counterfeit issues. For expensive examples, professional authentication is strongly recommended. Third-party grading companies examine coins closely and provide certification that helps confirm authenticity. This gives buyers confidence and protects sellers from disputes. One of the most exciting aspects of the 1970 Lincoln penny is that valuable examples can still be discovered today. Unlike ancient treasures buried underground, Lincoln cents often hide in plain sight. Many collectors began their journey by searching through old jars of pennies inherited from parents or grandparents. Imagine opening a dusty container that hasn't been touched in decades. Inside are hundreds or even thousands of coins collected over generations. Most are ordinary, but somewhere among them could be a rare variety or high-grade example waiting to be discovered. Stories like these fuel the excitement of coin collecting. Every collector dreams of finding something extraordinary where nobody else thought to look. The 1970 penny also connects collectors to an important period in American history. Every coin serves as a miniature time capsule. This particular penny circulated during a decade marked by social change, technological innovation, and historic achievements. When you hold one today, you're holding an object that may have passed through countless hands over more than half a century. Perhaps it bought a newspaper announcing a moon mission. Maybe it helped pay for a cup of coffee in 1970. Or maybe it sat untouched in a collection while the world changed around it. That connection to history gives coins a special appeal beyond their monetary value. Here's another fascinating fact. Many people assume that rare coins must be old. Yet the 1970 penny proves that's not always true. Compared to ancient coins or early American issues, 1970 feels relatively modern. Still, certain examples have become genuinely scarce because of collector demand, condition rarity, and specialized varieties. This reminds us that rarity isn't determined solely by age. Sometimes the right combination of factors can transform an ordinary modern coin into a highly sought-after collectible. Collectors also love the challenge associated with Lincoln cents. The Lincoln series is one of the most popular coin collections in the United States. Millions of collectors attempt to assemble complete sets covering decades of production. As they work toward that goal, every date and mint mark becomes important. The 1970 penny occupies a unique place in that journey because of its famous varieties and condition rarities. For many hobbyists, finding a superior example represents a meaningful achievement. The search itself becomes part of the fun. Hours spent examining rolls of pennies, checking mint marks, and studying tiny details create excitement that few hobbies can match. And that's why the 1970 Lincoln Penny continues capturing attention year after year. It combines history, mystery, affordability, and the possibility of discovering hidden value. Most examples may be common, but the best pieces remind us that extraordinary treasures can emerge from the most ordinary places. The next time you see a handful of pennies, don't dismiss them as spare change. Take a closer look. Examine the dates. Check the mint marks. You never know what might be hiding in plain sight. Somewhere out there, another remarkable 1970 Lincoln Penny may still be waiting to be discovered in an old coin jar, a forgotten collection, or even a pocketful of change. And that's what makes coin collecting so captivating. Every coin tells a story. Every date holds a mystery. And sometimes, the smallest coin in your pocket turns out to be the most fascinating treasure of all. So before you spend your next penny, take a moment to look at it carefully. Because the next great discovery might not be buried in a treasure chest or hidden in a vault. It might already be sitting in your hand, quietly waiting for someone to recognize its true value. What if I told you that a simple Lincoln penny sitting in a jar, tucked away in a drawer, or hiding in your pocket change could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people would never give a second glance to a 1971 Lincoln penny. After all, millions were made. But some of these ordinary-looking coins have surprised collectors with unexpected values, rare characteristics, and fascinating stories. Today, we're uncovering the truth about the 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and why this humble coin continues to capture attention more than 50 years after it was struck. The 1971 Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins ever produced in the United States. Yet it holds a special place in American coin collecting. To understand why, we need to travel back to the early 1970s. The year was 1971. America was experiencing major cultural and political changes. The Vietnam War was still ongoing, the space race was making history, and the economy was entering a new era. During this period, the United States Mint continued producing Lincoln cents for everyday commerce. These pennies were needed in huge numbers because cash transactions dominated daily life. The 1971 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, Philadelphia pennies generally did not carry a mint mark. So if you find a 1971 penny with no letter beneath the date, that is completely normal. It simply means the coin was made in Philadelphia. What makes this particular penny interesting is the enormous number that were produced. More than 1 billion were struck at the Philadelphia Mint alone. That number is so large that it is difficult to imagine. If you stacked 1 billion pennies, the pile would reach incredible heights. Despite this massive production, certain examples have become highly collectible. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. On the front, or obverse, you'll find the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. The design was created by Victor David Brenner and first appeared on the Lincoln cent in 1909. Lincoln faces to the right, with the word Liberty on one side and the date 1971 on the other. Above Lincoln's head appears the national motto, "In God We Trust." The reverse design features the Lincoln Memorial. This design was introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look carefully at the memorial, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the building. This makes the Lincoln Memorial cent one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides of the coin. The coin was made primarily of copper. Specifically, the composition was 95% copper and 5% zinc. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams and measures 19 millimeters across. These specifications remained standard for Lincoln cents until the major composition change that occurred in the early 1980s. At first glance, a 1971 penny might not seem special. But collectors know that condition can make all the difference. Most 1971 pennies entered circulation immediately after leaving the mint. They passed through countless hands, cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks. Over decades of use, many became scratched, worn, and discolored. Finding one today in pristine condition is much more difficult than many people realize. This is where value begins to enter the story. A heavily worn 1971 no-mint mark penny is usually worth only a few cents. However, examples preserved in exceptional condition can command significantly higher prices. Collectors especially seek coins that still display their original mint luster, the bright shine they possessed when first struck. A certified mint state example may sell for several dollars, while superb gem quality specimens can reach much higher levels. The highest grade examples are extremely scarce because so few survive decades without damage. But condition isn't the only factor that excites collectors. Errors and varieties are another reason some 1971 pennies attract attention. Coin errors occur when something unusual happens during the minting process. These mistakes create coins that differ from the standard design. Because they are uncommon, collectors often pay premiums for them. One of the most famous varieties associated with 1971 Lincoln cents is the doubled die obverse. On these coins, certain lettering and details appear doubled due to a misalignment during die production. The doubling can sometimes be seen in the date, the word Liberty, or the inscriptions around Lincoln's portrait. Not every 1971 penny with blurry lettering is a doubled die, however. True doubled die varieties require careful examination. Many coins simply show wear, damage, or machine doubling, which generally carries little collector value. Another collectible error involves off-center strikes. These occur when the coin blank is not properly aligned during the striking process. The result is a coin with part of the design missing and a blank area visible along one edge. Collectors also seek clipped planchets, die cracks, and other unusual minting mistakes from this era. Depending on the severity and visibility of the error, values can range from modest amounts to hundreds of dollars. Now let's talk about actual market values because this is often what sparks the greatest curiosity. Most circulated 1971 no-mint mark pennies are worth between 1 cent and a few cents. That may sound disappointing, but remember that condition is everything. Uncirculated examples can sell for several dollars. Higher-grade certified coins often bring tens of dollars. The finest known examples have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars when they achieved exceptionally high grading scores from professional grading services. Certain rare varieties and error coins have performed even better. Collectors are willing to compete aggressively when a coin combines rarity, eye appeal, and historical significance. This leads to an important question. How can you tell if your 1971 penny is worth investigating further? Start by checking for a mint mark beneath the date. If there is no mint mark, the coin was struck in Philadelphia. Next, examine the overall condition. Look for sharp details, strong luster, and minimal wear. Coins that appear nearly new deserve closer attention. Then inspect the lettering and date with a magnifying glass. Search for signs of doubling, unusual shapes, or other abnormalities. Also check for off-center strikes, clipped edges, or other obvious minting errors. Weight can provide another clue. A genuine 1971 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant deviations could indicate damage, alterations, or other issues that require further examination. Be cautious when evaluating online claims. Many videos and articles suggest that every old penny is worth a fortune. The reality is that truly valuable coins usually possess something special, whether it is extraordinary condition, a recognized variety, or a genuine mint error. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is assuming age alone creates value. While a 1971 penny is more than 50 years old, rarity and demand ultimately determine market prices. There are also counterfeit and altered coins in the marketplace. Some individuals attempt to modify ordinary pennies to resemble valuable varieties. Others may exaggerate minor characteristics to create excitement. This is why serious collectors often rely on professional grading services. These organizations authenticate coins, evaluate their condition, and place them in protective holders. Professional certification can provide confidence for both buyers and sellers. Here's a fascinating fact that many people don't know. The Lincoln cent is one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. Lincoln first appeared on the cent in 1909, making him the first real historical person regularly featured on a circulating United States coin. Before then, Most American coinage displayed symbolic figures rather than actual individuals. Another surprising detail involves the Lincoln Memorial reverse. As mentioned earlier, a tiny image of Lincoln can be seen seated inside the memorial. This means the same president appears on both sides of the coin, a unique feature that many collectors find fascinating. The 1971 penny also represents a period before major changes transformed American coinage. Later decades saw shifts in metal composition, minting technology, and collecting trends. Holding a 1971 penny is like holding a small piece of everyday American history. Collectors love this coin because it combines accessibility with the thrill of discovery. Nearly anyone can search for one. They can still be found in old collections, coin jars, inherited accumulations, and sometimes even in circulation. That possibility keeps people looking. Every collector dreams of finding something overlooked, something that others missed. Maybe it's a high-grade survivor hidden in a family coin album. Maybe it's an unusual error tucked away in a forgotten box. Maybe it's a variety that has gone unnoticed for decades. The 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that treasures do not always look extraordinary at first glance. Sometimes they appear as ordinary objects we handle every day. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the date. Check the condition. Search for unusual details. You never know what story that little copper coin might tell. And perhaps somewhere, right now, a forgotten 1971 Lincoln penny is waiting to be discovered, ready to reveal that even the smallest pieces of history can still hold big surprises. Have you ever looked at a penny and wondered if the small coin sitting in your pocket could actually be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars? Most people walk right past them every day. They toss them into jars, leave them in cup holders, or forget them in old drawers. But what if one ordinary-looking penny from 1978 was hiding an extraordinary story? Today, we're uncovering the mystery, history, and surprising value of the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that many people have seen but very few truly understand. The 1978 Lincoln penny is one of those coins that often gets overlooked because it appears so common. Millions of Americans handled these coins during the late 1970s. They were used to buy candy, newspapers, soft drinks, and countless everyday items. Yet decades later, collectors continue searching through rolls of pennies hoping to discover a rare example that could be worth far more than a single cent. To understand why this coin attracts attention today, we need to travel back to 1978. The United States was experiencing a period of economic change. Inflation was affecting prices across the country, and Americans were adjusting to rising costs. Despite these challenges, the U.S. Mint continued producing billions of pennies to meet the demands of commerce. The Lincoln cent had already become one of America's most recognizable coins. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1978, Americans had been carrying Lincoln cents for nearly 70 years. The 1978 penny was struck at several mint facilities. Coins produced in Philadelphia carried no mint mark. Coins struck in Denver displayed a small D mint mark beneath the date. The San Francisco Mint primarily produced proof coins for collectors and used an S mint mark. The coin we're focusing on today is the Philadelphia issue, the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Now, here's something that surprises many people. The absence of a mint mark on a 1978 penny is completely normal. Many beginners believe that a missing mint mark automatically makes a coin rare. In reality, Philadelphia pennies of that era were intentionally produced without a mint mark. So if you find a 1978 penny with no mint mark, you haven't necessarily discovered a rarity. However, that doesn't mean your coin has no value. Let's take a closer look at the design. On the front, or obverse, you'll find the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. The words, "In God we trust," appear above his head. The word "liberty" sits to the left, while the date 1978 appears to the right. The design was created by Victor David Brenner, whose initials can be found on the coin. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the classic Lincoln Memorial design. This reverse design was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look carefully, Lincoln's statue can actually be seen inside the memorial. This tiny detail makes the Lincoln Memorial Cent one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. The 1978 penny is composed primarily of copper. Specifically, it contains 95% copper and 5% zinc. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. Because it was produced before the major composition change of 1982, many collectors appreciate these older copper pennies. So what makes some 1978 no-mint mark pennies valuable while others remain worth only a cent? The answer lies in condition, rarity, and errors. Most 1978 pennies circulated heavily. They passed through countless hands, cash registers, and vending machines. Over time, they accumulated scratches, nicks, and wear. Finding a perfectly preserved example today is surprisingly difficult. Collectors use grading systems to evaluate coin condition. The highest grades are reserved for coins that look almost exactly as they did when they left the mint. These pristine examples can command impressive prices. A typical circulated 1978 no-mint mark penny might be worth only a few cents. But an uncirculated coin with strong luster and exceptional preservation can sell for several dollars or even much more. The real excitement begins when a coin reaches the highest certified grades. Over the years, professional grading services have recorded examples of 1978 no-mint mark pennies selling for hundreds and even thousands of dollars when preserved in near-perfect condition. These are not ordinary pocket change finds. They are elite specimens that survived decades without significant damage. Imagine two identical pennies leaving the Philadelphia Mint on the same day in 1978. One enters circulation immediately and spends decades being used in everyday transactions. The other is carefully stored in a collection and protected from wear. Fast forward nearly 50 years, and the difference in value between those two coins can be enormous. But condition is only part of the story. Error coins have always fascinated collectors because they represent mistakes made during the minting process. While the U.S. Mint strives for perfection, errors occasionally slip through. Some 1978 pennies display off-center strikes, where the design appears shifted away from the center of the coin. Others may show doubled features caused by issues during die production. There are also examples with die cracks, die chips, and other unusual characteristics that collectors enjoy hunting for. A dramatic mint error can significantly increase a coin's value. In some cases, error pennies that would normally be worth a few cents can sell for hundreds of dollars depending on the rarity and visual appeal of the mistake. This is one reason so many collectors continue searching through old penny jars and bank rolls. Every coin represents a possibility. Most will be ordinary, but occasionally a remarkable discovery appears. Let's talk about some real-world values. Average circulated examples generally trade for only a small premium above face value. Nice red, uncirculated examples often sell for several dollars. High-grade certified specimens can reach hundreds of dollars. The finest known examples have achieved prices that surprise many non-collectors, sometimes reaching into the thousands because of their exceptional quality and rarity at the top grades. It's important to remember that these premium prices apply only to coins in extraordinary condition. The vast majority of 1978 pennies found in circulation will not reach those values. Nevertheless, the possibility is enough to keep collectors searching. So how can you tell whether your 1978 no-mint mark penny is worth investigating further? First, examine the overall condition. Look for original mint luster, sharp details, and minimal signs of wear. A bright copper-red appearance is often preferred by collectors because many older pennies have darkened over time. Second, check for unusual features. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the date, lettering, and Lincoln's portrait. Watch for doubling, striking errors, or other anomalies. Third, weigh the coin if possible. Authentic 1978 copper pennies should weigh around 3.11 grams. Significant differences may indicate damage, alterations, or other issues that deserve closer examination. Fourth, compare your coin with verified examples from reputable sources. Many collectors make the mistake of assuming every unusual mark is a valuable error. In reality, damage that occurs after a coin leaves the mint is generally less desirable than a genuine mint error. Unfortunately, the popularity of valuable coins has also attracted counterfeiters and scammers. Some individuals alter common coins in hopes of creating something that appears rare. Others exaggerate values online to generate attention. A genuine 1978 no-mint mark penny should display consistent design details, proper weight, and authentic surfaces. If you believe you've discovered a particularly valuable example, professional grading can provide authentication and an objective assessment of condition. One fascinating fact about the 1978 penny is how it represents the final years of America's classic copper cent era. Just a few years later, rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition of the penny. Beginning in 1982, most Lincoln cents transitioned to a copper-plated zinc format. As a result, the 1978 penny belongs to a generation of coins that many collectors view with nostalgia. These copper cents have a distinct feel and appearance that differs from modern pennies. Another interesting detail is the enormous number of pennies produced in 1978. The Philadelphia Mint struck billions of them. Yet despite these huge production numbers, finding flawless examples remains remarkably difficult because most entered circulation immediately. Collectors often describe coin collecting as a treasure hunt hidden in plain sight. Unlike buried treasure, these discoveries can occur anywhere. An old coffee can in a garage, a forgotten piggy bank, or a handful of change from a cash register could contain something worth investigating. That's part of the magic behind coins like the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln Penny. On the surface, it seems ordinary. It is a coin that millions of people ignored. Yet beneath that ordinary appearance lies history, craftsmanship, and the possibility of hidden value. Every scratch tells a story. Every coin has traveled through decades of American life. It may have passed through hundreds of hands, crossed state lines, or sat quietly in a collection waiting to be rediscovered. Today, collectors continue searching for the finest examples because they understand something many people overlook. Rarity isn't always about low production numbers. Sometimes it's about survival. Sometimes it's about finding a coin that escaped decades of wear and remained nearly perfect. The next time you come across a 1978 Lincoln Penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Check the condition. Search for unusual characteristics. While most examples will remain modestly valued, a select few have proven that even the smallest coin can hold surprising worth. And that's what makes coin collecting so captivating. You never know when an ordinary penny might reveal an extraordinary story. Somewhere right now, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, hidden in an old collection, or resting in a jar of spare change, another remarkable 1978 Lincoln Penny could be waiting to be discovered. The question is simple. Will you be the one who finds it? What if I told you that a penny you could still find in an old jar, forgotten drawer, or dusty piggy bank might be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars? Most people walk past pennies every day without giving them a second thought. But hidden among billions of ordinary coins is one small copper-colored piece that continues to fascinate collectors across America. It's the 1984 Lincoln Penny with no mint mark, a coin that seems completely ordinary at first glance, but has a story that surprises almost everyone who learns about it. Today, we're uncovering the history, mysteries, errors, and values behind the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what makes this penny special and why collectors still search for it more than 40 years after it was made. The year was 1984. America was in the middle of a decade known for technological innovation, economic growth, and cultural change. Personal computers were becoming more common in homes, blockbuster movies filled theaters, and millions of Americans carried loose change in their pockets every day without realizing that some of those coins would eventually become collectible treasures. The Lincoln cent had already been a familiar part of American life for more than 70 years. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. Before that, American coins typically displayed symbolic figures rather than actual individuals. By 1984, the Lincoln cent was one of the most widely produced coins in the country. Billions were struck to meet the demand for everyday commerce. Most people viewed them as the least valuable coins in circulation. Yet sometimes, when coins are produced in such enormous numbers, unexpected mistakes and unusual varieties slip through the minting process. Those rare exceptions are what collectors dream about finding. Now let's talk about the no-mint mark. Many people hear the phrase no-mint mark and immediately assume something is missing. In reality, a missing mint mark is not automatically an error. During 1984, pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint normally carried no mint mark at all. That means millions of genuine 1984 pennies were intentionally produced without any letter beneath the date. So if no mint mark is normal, why are collectors interested in this coin? The answer lies in specific varieties, errors, condition rarity, and one particularly famous feature that has turned certain 1984 pennies into valuable collectibles. First, let's examine the coin itself. On the front, you'll find the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head appears the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty, and the date 1984 appears to the right. The reverse design features the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959. If you look closely, Lincoln can actually be seen seated inside the memorial. It's one of the smallest depictions of a person ever placed on a circulating U.S. coin. The coin weighs approximately 2.5 grams because it belongs to a newer composition introduced in 1982. Earlier Lincoln cents were made mostly of copper. However, rising metal prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition. The 1984 penny consists primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. That change helped reduce production costs, but it also created new opportunities for errors and unusual varieties. One of the most famous varieties associated with the 1984 Lincoln cent is known as the doubled ear variety. This is the coin that has generated enormous excitement among collectors. At first glance, the coin looks completely normal, but under magnification, Lincoln's ear appears doubled. The doubling is strong enough that even beginning collectors can often see it once they know where to look. Unlike some forms of machine doubling that add little value, this variety was created during the die-making process itself. That makes it a legitimate collectible variety recognized by major grading services and coin experts. When collectors discovered the doubled ear variety, demand quickly increased. Suddenly, people who had ignored 1984 pennies for years began checking every coin they could find. And that's when the treasure hunt began. Many collectors spent hours searching through rolls from banks, coin jars, and inherited collections hoping to find one of these elusive varieties. Some got lucky. Others searched thousands of pennies without finding a single example. The excitement surrounding the doubled ear variety remains strong even today. Now let's talk about value. A typical circulated 1984 no-mint mark penny is usually worth only a few cents. Because billions were produced, common examples remain plentiful. However, condition changes everything. Coins that have survived in pristine condition are much harder to find than most people realize. Think about it. Pennies experience constant wear. They bounce around in pockets, cash registers, purses, and jars. After decades of circulation, finding a flawless example becomes increasingly difficult. Professional grading services assign numerical grades to coins. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin can become. High-grade 1984 no-mint mark pennies have sold for impressive amounts at auction. Examples certified in exceptional mint state condition have brought hundreds of dollars and sometimes significantly more depending on eye appeal and market demand. The real stars, however, are high-grade examples of the doubled ear variety. Circulated specimens can sell for respectable premiums. Better preserved examples often command hundreds of dollars. Some outstanding examples certified by major grading services have sold for well over $1,000. The finest known specimens have achieved prices that surprise even experienced collectors. Imagine finding a penny worth more than an entire month's paycheck simply because of a tiny doubling on Lincoln's ear. That's exactly why collectors remain fascinated by this coin. But how can you tell whether you have a valuable example? Start by examining the date. Make sure it clearly reads 1984. Next, check beneath the date. A genuine Philadelphia coin from that year should have no mint mark. Then inspect Lincoln's ear using a magnifying glass or coin loop. On the doubled ear variety, you'll notice an additional outline that creates a clear doubled appearance. The doubling should look like part of the design itself rather than random damage or wear. Pay close attention to the coin's overall condition as well. Strong details, original luster, and minimal marks can significantly increase value. Unfortunately, as values rise, counterfeit and altered coins sometimes appear in the marketplace. One common trick involves modifying damaged coins to imitate valuable varieties. Another involves using photographs that exaggerate ordinary features. If you believe you've found an important variety, consider having it authenticated by a professional grading service. Expert verification provides confidence for both collectors and potential buyers. Now here's a fascinating fact many people don't know. The Lincoln cent is one of the most collected coin series in American history. Millions of people began collecting pennies as children because they were affordable and easy to find. For many collectors, the search for unusual varieties like the 1984 doubled ear becomes a lifelong passion. Some collectors remember finding their first interesting coin in pocket change decades ago. Others inherited collections from parents or grandparents. These personal stories create emotional connections that go far beyond monetary value. Coins are tiny pieces of history that pass through countless hands. Think about where a 1984 penny might have traveled. It may have been used to buy a newspaper in New York, a soda in Texas, or a candy bar in California. It may have sat forgotten in a drawer for years before reappearing in circulation. Every coin carries a silent story. Another surprising detail is that many valuable coins are discovered long after they were minted. Unlike treasures buried underground, collectible coins often hide in plain sight. They remain mixed with ordinary coins until someone takes a closer look. That's one reason coin collecting continues to attract new enthusiasts every year. The possibility of discovery is always there. Collectors also love the 1984 no-mint mark penny because it combines accessibility with excitement. You don't need expensive equipment to begin searching. You don't need a large investment. You simply need curiosity, patience, and attention to detail. The idea that a coin worth 1 cent could potentially be worth hundreds or even thousands creates a sense of adventure that few hobbies can match. Even people who have never collected coins before often become interested after hearing stories about valuable pennies found in circulation. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not only about money. It's about history. It's about discovery. It's about learning to notice details that others overlook. The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that extraordinary things can sometimes hide inside ordinary objects. The next time you receive change, take a closer look before spending it. That small copper-colored coin might be more interesting than you think. Somewhere right now, a valuable 1984 doubled-ear penny could be sitting unnoticed in a coin jar, tucked away in an old collection, or waiting in a roll of pennies at a local bank. And the person who finds it next could be you. So before you ignore another penny, remember this story. A coin worth only 1 cent transformed into one of the most talked about Lincoln cent varieties of its era because a tiny detail caught the attention of collectors. Sometimes the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is no larger than Lincoln's ear. And that is exactly why the hunt continues. Have you ever picked up an ordinary-looking penny and wondered if it could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars? Most people toss pennies into jars, leave them in cup holders, or ignore them completely. But hidden among billions of common coins is one particular penny that continues to surprise collectors across America. It's the 1985 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like just another cent. But some examples have sold for far more than 1 cent, and a few rare varieties have turned ordinary pocket change into a collector's treasure. Today, we're uncovering the fascinating story behind the 1985 Lincoln penny, how it was made, what makes certain examples valuable, and why collectors still search through rolls of pennies hoping to find one. The year was 1985. Ronald Reagan was serving as President of the United States. Personal computers were becoming more common in homes and offices. The Cold War was still shaping world events, and Americans carried cash every day for nearly every purchase they made. At the Denver Mint, millions upon millions of Lincoln Pennies were being struck to keep up with demand. In fact, the Denver Mint produced more than 5 billion Lincoln cents in 1985. That's an enormous number, which is why most people assume these coins can never be valuable. Yet coin collecting has taught us something important. Sometimes value isn't determined by how many coins were made. Instead, value often comes from condition, rarity within a specific grade, or unusual mistakes that occurred during production. To understand why collectors care about the 1985 D-penny, we first need to look at its design. The front of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. This design was originally introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. It was the first regular United States coin to feature an actual historical person rather than a symbolic figure. Above Lincoln's portrait appears the phrase, "In God we trust." To the left is the word liberty. To the right is the date 1985, along with the small D mint mark indicating that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. On the reverse side, you'll find the classic Lincoln Memorial design. This reverse was used from 1959 through 2008 and remains one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. If you look carefully, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. That means Lincoln appears on both sides of the coin, something many people never notice. Now let's talk about the metal composition because this is where the story becomes especially interesting. Before 1982, Lincoln pennies were primarily made of copper. Rising metal prices eventually made that too expensive. As a result, the U.S. Mint changed the composition. By 1985, Lincoln cents were being struck using a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. The coin contains approximately 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change helped reduce production costs, but it also created new opportunities for unusual mint errors and varieties. Most 1985 D-pennies are worth only a few cents in circulated condition. If you find one in pocket change today, it probably won't fund your retirement. But that doesn't mean every 1985 D-penny is common. Collectors pay close attention to coin condition. A coin that has survived for decades without significant scratches, wear, or damage can become surprisingly valuable. When grading services examine coins, they assign numerical grades. The highest grades are extremely difficult to achieve because even tiny imperfections can lower a coin's score. For the 1985 D-penny, examples in average circulated condition might be worth only 1 cent to a few cents. However, uncirculated examples with strong luster and exceptional preservation can bring significantly higher prices. Some professionally graded coins in top mint state grades have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars because so few examples remain in such pristine condition. Think about that for a moment. Billions were produced, yet only a tiny fraction survived in nearly perfect condition. That's what collectors are really paying for. But condition isn't the only reason a 1985 D-penny might become valuable. Mint errors are another major factor. Whenever coins are produced in enormous quantities, mistakes occasionally happen. One of the most talked about varieties associated with 1985 Lincoln cents is doubling. Doubling occurs when elements of the design appear duplicated due to issues during the die creation process. On some coins, letters, numbers, or design details may show noticeable separation. Collectors carefully inspect the date, inscriptions, and Lincoln's features looking for signs of doubling. Another valuable error involves off-center strikes. An off-center strike happens when the blank coin planchet is not properly aligned during the striking process. The result is a coin with part of the design missing and blank space visible around the edge. Depending on the degree of the off-center strike, these coins can attract strong collector interest. Then there are die cracks and cut errors. Over time, coin dies experience tremendous pressure and wear. Sometimes cracks develop. When that happens, raised lines or unusual blobs may appear on the finished coin. Collectors often enjoy finding these unusual production mistakes because they make each coin unique. Perhaps one of the most dramatic errors involves wrong planchets. Although extremely rare, some coins are accidentally struck on planchets intended for different denominations or foreign coins. When such mistakes are authenticated, they can command impressive prices in the collector market. Now let's talk about real-world values. Most 1985 D pennies found in circulation remain common and inexpensive. A nice uncirculated example might sell for a few dollars. Higher-grade certified examples can bring significantly more. Some top-grade specimens have sold for hundreds of dollars because collectors competing for registry sets need the finest known examples available. Error coins are where things become truly exciting. Depending on the type and severity of the error, a 1985 D penny could be worth tens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. There have been instances where dramatic mint errors attracted strong bidding from collectors who appreciate unusual pieces. That's why experienced coin hunters always examine their pennies carefully before spending them. You never know when an ordinary-looking cent might reveal something extraordinary. Of course, whenever money is involved, counterfeit coins become a concern. Fortunately, there are several ways to identify a genuine 1985 D Lincoln penny. First, check the weight. A standard 1985 D penny should weigh approximately 2.5 grams. If the weight is significantly different, further investigation may be necessary. Next, examine the mint mark. The D mint mark should appear natural and consistent with the rest of the design. Altered coins sometimes show evidence of tampering under magnification. Look closely at the lettering and date. Authentic coins display sharp, consistent details. Poorly made counterfeits often reveal unusual textures, uneven surfaces, or incorrect spacing. Color can also provide clues. Because these coins are copper-plated zinc, their appearance differs somewhat from older solid copper cents. If a coin appears unusual, professional authentication may be worthwhile. Many collectors use magnifying glasses or digital microscopes to inspect coins more carefully. Even inexpensive tools can reveal details invisible to the naked eye. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. The Lincoln cent remains one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Generations of Americans have carried Lincoln pennies in their pockets, purses, and piggy banks. The 1985 D penny represents a specific moment in that long history, connecting collectors to an era that now feels increasingly distant. Another interesting detail is how many valuable coins have been discovered in ordinary bank rolls. Stories regularly emerge of collectors finding rare varieties, error coins, or high-grade examples while searching through boxes of cents obtained from local banks. The thrill of the hunt is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive. Unlike many hobbies, treasure can still be hiding in everyday circulation. Imagine receiving a handful of change after buying a cup of coffee and unknowingly carrying a collectible coin worth far more than its face value. That possibility keeps collectors searching. So why do collectors continue chasing the 1985 D Lincoln penny after all these years? Part of the appeal comes from accessibility. Almost anyone can afford to search for Lincoln cents. You don't need a huge budget to participate. Another reason is the challenge. Finding a high-grade example or a genuine mint error requires patience, knowledge, and attention to detail. Collectors enjoy developing those skills. There's also the historical connection. Every coin tells a story. The 1985 D penny reminds us of a different America, a different economy, and a different chapter in the nation's history. When collectors hold one, they're holding a small piece of the past. And sometimes that small piece of the past turns out to be surprisingly valuable. The next time you receive change, don't dismiss those pennies so quickly. Take a closer look at the dates. Inspect the mint marks. Check for unusual features. That ordinary cent sitting unnoticed in a drawer could have a story waiting to be discovered. And among those forgotten coins might be a 1985 D Lincoln penny with exceptional condition, a fascinating error, or a hidden characteristic that collectors would love to own. After all, the most exciting treasures are often the ones hiding in plain sight. So before you spend your next penny, ask yourself one question. What if that tiny coin is worth much more than 1 cent? You might be just one careful look away from finding out.